So Kate is going to come on in just a second here, ladies and gentlemen, and definitely stay tuned. This woman is like a 10xer, evolving people, expanding consciousness, and awakening the earth, and doing it with some pretty interesting and epic, and I would say evolutionary, so to speak, stuff with medicines and different things like that. It's going to be a blast. Definitely stay tuned. If you want to know more about retreats, if you want to know expanding your human potential, stay tuned. And I'm talking to you because you are becoming your greatest possible self. Thank you for being here. I acknowledge you. I see you. I witness you. I honor you being on the journey, becoming the highest self that you can be, your greatest possible self. So I have so much love for you. Thank you for being here. However I can support you in continuing to grow and evolve, let's figure it out. Let's discover, let's play, let's have fun. If it's coming on the marathon as a guest, would love to explore that. If it's launching your own podcast, if it's taking the next step with someone like Kate, who's coming on right now, about to rock your world, do that. If it's coming to our Bali Flow and Fire retreat in November, do that. Like whatever is in alignment with you, whatever calls your soul forward, dive in, okay? I'm going to talk about the iTunes review of the week next, and it's by Jen Hudgens. Jen says, love this podcast. This podcast is so motivating. I love the caliber of guests and the energy that Chris brings to the show each and every time. Jen, thank you so much. I super appreciate you for tuning in and sharing your experience, your journey, and what you feel about our show. Thank you. And if you want a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-hour live stream, go to beergps.com/iTunes or search Greatest Possible Self on Apple Podcast Store, and you can give us a review there. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I just know I love you. I'm going to introduce Kate in just a sec. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes. This is going to be an epic freaking conversation. Stay till the end because I have a feeling we are going to go deep. Kate was introduced to the teachings of Osho and his work at a very young age through her beloved uncle, who was a disciple of his in India and the USA. Kate's childhood subjected to psychological and emotional abuse led her on a detour into a world of drugs, homelessness, mental illness, and mindless partying. Knowing and overcoming her own darkness has allowed her to pass on the skills she learned from masters, gurus, yogis, monks, and teachers from all over the world. And after finding herself running businesses for her whole life, in 2017, she combined her love for deep spiritual work, visionary medicines, and business, and she founded Ancient Awakening with no capital. And in 2019, it became a 7-figure business. Over a 1-year period from 2018 to 2019, the total revenue of the company grew 800%. Kate now guides other conscious leaders to dive within themselves through her plant medicine retreats and birth conscious businesses into the world through her conscious business and money programs. And we're blessed to have Kate with us here today. Kate, are you ready to rock the house, Superwoman?
You! I'm
I love
so
it.
excited.
I love it. I love your mandala behind you. I think that's what it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes. I love sacred geometry. I'm sure you found a lot of synchronicities and signs and wisdom in sacred geometry as you've gotten into the psychedelic fractal world and these different dimensions that are constantly having fun with us. We get to play, and I'm sure it's a lot more significant for you than I can even understand, but I get a fraction of it, so it's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Your energy's amazing. It's going to be fun.
I love it. Let's dive right in. The theme today is transformational travel, Kate. So we want to hear what that means to you.
Oh, I love that. Transformational travel. Well, I feel like transformational travel is an opportunity we have to travel mindfully and consciously. So choosing things that allow us to expand and to reconnect to ourselves through traveling the world. So being in touch with different cultures, different experiences, different people. I think it's really the way that you should travel. And I'm noticing different businesses pop up now. Have you seen, like, there's a conscious travel company, there's like goddess tours. I'm like, yes, that's what travel should be. For me, that's what transformational travel is. is.
I love it. I love it. It's like, hey, what is the value that I want to be fulfilled through this travel experience? Why am I traveling? Well, to reconnect with my soul, to have adventure, to, discover romance, whatever it is, right? Whatever people's things are, they can go fulfill that value. And we're in this world of choice, right? Conscious choice, creating our reality where we have so many options. It is so freaking beautiful. And speaking of options, we don't have to stay stuck in a kind of old school business where we have to work really hard, suffer, be miserable, and finally one day be free after like 40 years of working. No, we can create that dream business now, and you're helping people to do that, to discover themselves, and do all kinds of amazing things. Can you share a little bit more about your business today and what you're helping your clients with?
Yeah, of course. So essentially what I do is I help people reconnect to themselves before they were told who they were. So yeah, because that part of ourselves that were before the conditioning got layered on, and the conditioning is always conditioning of limitation, because that's the way our world is formatted. It's formatted partially around who we are. We're human, yes, but that's only one part of who we are, and that's a part that we believe is limited. So I take people back to a place where they actually touch viscerally and remember who they are, so they can come back into the world, bring that wisdom and knowledge, and build businesses and create conscious currency to start to heal the world, and then to help other people remember who they are as well.
Ooh. So juicy. I love it. I love it. We are all about that here. Greatest Possible Self. We want to be fulfilled, right? We want to be fulfilled in our work. We want to serve other people. We want to impact them, leave a legacy. And of course, we deserve to get paid well for the work that we do. We deserve to, have the abundance circulate to us, through us, into our lives because of the good that we're doing. We're constantly, I see so many people, I'm sure you see the same, constantly serving, constantly adding value, constantly wanting to go save people. And maybe that may or may not be the healthiest place to come from, but we have good intentions to go save and support people. And like, we can do it in a way that we get to thrive and prosper. And you have totally created that reality for yourself, Kate, which is freaking rad. So kudos.
Thank you. Thank you. I think when we remember who we are, we remember there's no limitation. So abundance and like limitlessness is a part of what we are at the core. So why would we try and compartmentalize things into, oh, I can't have too much of that, or there's not enough of that? Like that's not our truth. So of course we get to thrive. Like, of course, like it's just a no-brainer for me.
Oh my gosh, we're diving in. Kate, this is beautiful. Let's go back into your journey. That's a huge part of your awakening and your evolution. So tell us where it all really began for you, where you started. I guess you picked up some beliefs that probably, you said you were a certain thing that you believed. Tell us about like what you believed that was untrue.
Yeah, for sure. I had an interesting childhood because on one hand, I had this, you are limitless and you can do anything you want. On the other hand, I got, you're hopeless, you're fat, you're a failure, you're crap. And you're one of the beliefs that I picked up that I got from my dad, and I hold no like resentment towards my dad. So I just want to context that because I love him deeply and I'm grateful for this opportunity he gave me. But one of the beliefs that I picked up from him was that I'm hopeless. It's an Australian saying. He's like, you're useless as tits on a bull. So my whole life, that was running through my head.
Yeah.
Like, you're useless. You're useless. And that definitely didn't bode well. And that took me into a journey of some pretty dark places. And I built up a reality where I was useless, where everything that I did do failed. And that just shows the power of beliefs, right?
Yeah. So we don't have a choice really when we're growing up. Like, we are sponges, The challenge is like, once we become aware of like personal development and growth, then we have the responsibility of saying, okay, now I'm going to, create my way out of this, because I found out I have some baggage that, some people around me have burdened me with, or, put into my life, spoke into me, and I've like adopted as a truth. And it's interesting how our conscious evolution happens, and, the parents that we choose and that kind of stuff. It's fascinating, right? So you went through that process and you had some healing to do. So when did the healing really begin for you?
Yeah, the healing really begun, I would say, when my dad actually passed away. So when my dad passed away, And I was fortunate enough to be there when he took his last breath. So I got to hold his hand, which was really beautiful. We actually spent 3 years before him passing away really mending our relationship, because he got a diagnosis that he had bowel cancer. And, like the lifetime expiry when you get diagnosed is about 5 years. Wow. And so 3 years in, he passed. And that was the most healing thing in the world for me, because I was completely faced with my own mortality. Like, it was like, well, I'd been doing all these really dangerous things. I had an addiction to meth. I lived on the streets for a while in Auckland. Like, I was wrapped up in all these stories that I was psychotic, that I had anxiety, that I had depression. But being faced with my own like mortality was like, whoa. Like, I'm not getting out of here alive. And if I continue on this path, I will be hitting this spot that my dad's in right now a lot sooner than I actually want. And that was the turning point for me. That was the pivotal moment where I went, whoa, I get to choose, and I'm not choosing this anymore.
That's powerful. So you were doing businesses, right? Like you've been in business for a while. Tell us where business came into your life and how it evolved.
Yeah, I think I've always been this way. Like, I remember when I was a kid, my mum would be like, here's $20, go and buy your dad a present. So I would go and buy my dad a present, and it would be like $12. I'd try and get something that was as valuable and as good, but for as little as possible, so that I could save the rest of the money and use it to like create more money. I don't even know where that came from. I just distinctively remember that as a kid. And through my life, like I would look around my house, in my room. I would, get all my old books. I'd take them and I'd cash them in. Yeah. Or I would, like, anything that I had, I would learn about exchanging. So I'd always never was interested in exchanging time for money. That always bored me. I was always looking at how can I leverage what I have to create more. That's just always been my mindset. And I started my first business. I started teaching dancing, which was really interesting in my 20s. Wow. And then I went into a health and fitness business, which was amazing because it failed completely. They both kind of failed, which was great because I got some really powerful lessons. And I kind of did the coaching thing for a long time, but I never really did it full time. I always had side businesses. And then when my fitness business failed, I was like, well, maybe it's time now I do this spiritual coaching thing. Like, I've got nothing else. I've got nothing to lose. And from that, I dived in, and then Ancient Awakening kind of happened.
Wow. So that was, you said, I think I read 2 years ago, like around just 2 years ago that got birthed. So what was the catalyst for like coaching, as like you felt like, hey, this is who I am. This is who Kate is. Coaching is my path. Like, how did you get that calling? Why supporting other people? Why coaching them?
Yeah. So I feel like because I've deeply suffered, I do have compassion for people that are suffering. And I remember as a kid, like, this has always been with me as well. These things, I just feel like I was born with them. I don't even know where they've really actually come from. I remember as a child, like, watching movies. Like, there was a movie about Steve Biko and the apartheid in South Africa, and I read like 20 essays about, like, I was 8 years old, about the conditions of humanity and why are people suffering and how is this possible? I don't understand. And then with my uncle and the teachings from OSHO, I literally was I made a commitment to myself at 8, and I was just like, you know what? I am going to solve the world's suffering at 8 years old, thinking that, that's all I had to do. But then I created so much of my own suffering that there was a point where I went, I probably need to do that first. Yeah. And so when I got to a point where I felt like my suffering was still there, of course it still is. I'm human. I'm going to suffer on some level, until which point I become enlightened, which who knows if that'll ever happen. But I just went, okay, cool. I feel like my suffering is sort of under wraps at the moment. I feel quite embodied. I'm going to start teaching others and hopefully give them some of the freedom and the tools that have allowed me to get to the point that I'm in. And to be honest, like, I didn't think it was possible, because I was like, you can't earn a living from this. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, who's going to pay you? How are you? This is not a real job. You're not going to an office. You're not all the things that society had told me. That's kind of why I think I was super resistant. So I tried to create businesses that were more societally accepted. And coaching wasn't.
I love this because there's like kind of some soft skills in this. There's higher spiritual purpose, soul work, right? Which sometimes doesn't have any tangible, measurable outcomes, which
Yeah.
can attract a lot of people. How did you get over that hurdle and like just trust that your coaching was valuable, or what did you have to see or recognize or own for that?
Yeah. There were two things that happened which were really, really significant. One was I sat with a medicine called the God molecule, or in scientific terms, pharmacological terms, it's called 5-MeO-DMT.
Okay.
And it is harvested, doesn't hurt the toad, by the way, just want to context it with that. It's harvested from a gland on a toad in the Sonoran Desert. And you smoke. It's what was really funny. I have to actually speak into this because I found it so hilarious. Is you actually smoke it through a crack pipe. Now I had a meth addiction, which I also used to smoke through a crack pipe.
Some memories of that.
I'm sitting in this beautiful ceremony on this mountain, and they're like, okay, who's going to go first? I'm like, me. And then they bring out, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting pipe. We're really going to be using that. This is bringing back a lot of memories.
But isn't it interesting, full circle, right? Like you went and journeyed through life, and now you're at like the same point, but you have a higher level of consciousness and vibration about you. So it's a different, completely different experience.
Totally different experience. It was nothing like that. It was such a trip, like metaphorically. So what I got from that is it's called the God molecule because in a sense it's described as returning to God, so returning home, returning to, it's very difficult to put into words, but what I got from it tangibly was that I'm the creator of my reality, and that's a cosmic joke of it all. Like, I remember coming out of the journey, and apparently I was rolling around just laughing, going, it's the Holy Grail, because I just watched the Da Vinci Code, and I thought that was really hilarious how, like, the church and everything wanted to keep the Holy Grail away, because if we knew how it would change our whole society and culture and everything, it would be, all the structures they wanted to control us with would be completely destroyed. And so I'm rolling around this paddock through cow poo going, it's the Holy Grail. And so that was huge. And then about a month after that, this would have been about 3.5 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, I did the bridge method with Alexi, Panos and Preston Smiles. Yeah. And I did their extreme component of that. And that combined with the toad really was the things that made me go, I get to choose this. Like, I actually am the creator, and I know that intellectually. The toad actually allowed me to experience it. Now I get to live it. And so I just started building up that reality that I wanted. And I kept using psychedelics in different flow states, not just psychedelics, meditation, fasting, long hours of meditation, like 10 hours a day over 7 to 10 day periods, and yoga as well. So yeah.
It's hardcore. I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat last year, and it was like so powerful, and just like to get present to who I am, what I'm capable of. I know that's a big thing for you, is like this 10x mindset. We talked about it on our pre-interview call, like what's really possible as human beings. I want to get into flow states in a second, but before that, like this 10x aspect, like tell us about how you discovered that, why it resonates with you, and how you apply it.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's so opposite on the surface level, it seems so opposite to like spiritual teachings and ideologies, right? But actually at the core, it's all the same thing. So, and I got introduced to the idea of 10X because when my fitness business was failing about 6 years ago, I read a book by a gentleman called Grant Cardone, who now is my coach, and it's called the 10X. And it changed the game for me. It didn't save my fitness business because at the time I didn't know how to hold money. So we started creating lots of money, but it was going just as quickly as it came in. But then when I rebuilt myself, I used all those principles. And I didn't even realize it, to be honest, until about 6 months ago. I went and did one of his boot camp trainings, and he was going through all the principles from the book. And I was like, hang on a minute. These are exactly the principles I teach people, and exactly the principles I've actually used to build Ancient Awakening, and why we had such rapid growth. I'm like, listening to that book on audio 20 times while my world was falling apart obviously did imprint itself in my subconscious mind.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Wow. Isn't it fascinating how like sometimes you just got to plant the seeds, and you might not see like the information blossoming and producing the fruit, but like simply consistently doing it is like really, it's going to work on our subconscious mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Like that was total evidence for me. I was like, oh yes, amazing.
Yeah.
The reason, see, I believe we're limitless, and yeah, man, anything that is the counter is a story, because our life is controlled and built around a narrative we tell ourselves. So if we want to shift our life, we have to change the narrative. And so for me, that's why I love 10x, because it allows me to stay uncomfortable. When I'm uncomfortable, I'm forming new narratives based on evidence and results of the things that I'm yielding tangibly in my reality. That helps me create new belief systems and make massive quantum leaps really quickly.
Damn. This is hardcore. We're gonna dive into it even more. I want to tap into flow states. Let's talk about what is a flow state and how does someone achieve them. Why is it important to seek and create these flow states in our life?
Yeah, such a good question. I'm going to speak into it from my own experience, because I feel like what I always am mindful of is that I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor. So I'm like, I always want to be careful when I talk about this. This is my experience from the research that I've done over many, many years. Is a flow state is a direct access point to the place beyond who we were before they told us we were somebody. So it's access. You could call it God. You could call it source. You could call it your higher self. It doesn't really matter. There's a million different terms we can give it. But it's a place beyond cognition. It's a place beyond identity, restriction, and limitedness. It's a place where we have the access to the wisdom of all things. And for centuries, different cultures and tribes have been using different modalities to help them access the wisdom from the flow state. It allows us to shift and alter our state of consciousness. Sometimes actually most often, it gives us some form of ecstasy or some sort of extra human superpowers where we're in this state of we don't feel pain. We feel that we disappear. There's like a psychedelic experience. There's all sorts of different things that can happen in this state. But the ultimate takeaway is that we get access into stuff that we don't get in our normal state, in our normal way of being.
Wow. So it's tapping into the limitlessness, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever the mechanism is, could be psychedelics, could be meditation, could be other things. It's like reconnecting with that infiniteness and disconnecting from the narrative, disconnecting to I am my body, I am my thoughts, I am my identity, that whatever we've constructed, and reconnecting with the infinite.
Yes, exactly. Going beyond the constructs.
Wow.
Absolutely. Wow. And it taps us into so we're only conditioned to see such a small part based on the way our eyes only see light fractals. So it actually allows us, even though we're not seeing through our eyes, it allows us to get the full spectrum of actually what's there. And that's really cool. So I always joke and say it's because we start to see through the third eye instead of these eyes, in a way.
Yes. Okay, so let's go to someone who's on this journey of becoming limitless. Where do they start? Is it around the narrative? Is it around meditation, habits? Like, how do they start to access these flow states and limitlessness?
Good question. For me, I would always start with finding a way of achieving a flow state that resonates with you, because we're all different. Psychedelics is not going to resonate with everybody. And, meditation is not going to resonate with everybody, but maybe breath work's their thing. Maybe biodynamic breath work is how they get into flow state. Or, maybe yoga, or maybe walking meditation or Zazen meditation. So find something that resonates with you and practice. If you practice accessing flow states every single day, what you will get is this ability to observe eventually, depending on your own brainwaves, but I can get into that later.
Yes.
You will begin to actually see your life and your narrative that you're living from a third person perspective. It gives us insight. So we go from playing the character to observing the character. And when we're in that state of observation, we start to get to choose how we show up. And then we start to challenge the beliefs that are running our life, and we start to get to choose different ones.
Wow. So let's talk about brainwaves, and how do we monitor that and know which brainwaves we can start to de-identify with us. Yes. Yeah,
it's such a good question. Do you know Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the bomb at this. If anyone's interested in brainwaves, I would 100% suggest you go and look up Dr. Joe Dispenza, because he knows a gazillion times more than me. So for me, I actually relate my brain waves to how I'm feeling and how I'm seeing. So your beta brain waves are the ones that are going to get us in that egoic kind of identification with the limit, like with the limited part of ourselves, the anger, the react. So there's two ways we can live. We can live through reaction to our conditioning, which is where we're on autopilot, or we're kind of like a little bit stuck, triggered, reactive, charged. But though that's all associated with your beta brain waves. So you're in a limited way of being and behaving. As we elevate and we start to shift out, we move from a reaction place to a choice place. So by practicing getting into flow state, which elevates us to the alpha, the theta brain waves, we actually are able to condition ourselves to stay in that state as we begin to move through our life. If we can condition ourselves to stay in that state as we move through our life, we shift from a place of reaction to choice. When we're in choice, that's when, as I said before, we start to be able to choose how we show up rather than reacting. So say, for example, you're in an argument with your partner and they say something that normally would have triggered an old wound and you would have just gone, rah. Well, by practicing flow state and shifting and elevating the frequency that we hold cellularly in our brain waves, if we practice this every morning before we actually go about into our day, our partner can say that thing, but because we're in a different position, we're in an elevated frequency and in a different brainwave frequency, we're actually able to let that come, look at it, observe it, and then choose to not react. But if we're in the lower frequency and if we're in beta brain waves, we're just going to instantly react because we're living through reactions of our conditioning rather through omnipresent choice.
And so the beta, so the beta is fight or flight or freeze, that kind of animalistic instant
reptilian,
reptilian brainwave, and then the alpha is like alpha and theta. That's the higher level of access, and then I think beyond that is like gamma or delta gamma.
Sleeping. I'm pretty sure gamma is sleeping.
So there's a bunch of different ones. I'm curious, because like while you're talking about this, I'm like, wouldn't it be valuable to just be constantly present to what brainwave that we are in, like having some kind of like monitoring device to like beep and say, hey, you're out of freaking alpha, get back. You know?
Totally. I think that would be amazing. That's something. Well, Dr. Joe, I know at his retreats, he does hook people up onto machines and he will measure their brainwave frequencies while they're doing his meditations. And it's super interesting. And there's a gentleman called Sadhguru. Do you know Sadhguru?
Yep.
Yeah, he's so cool. Have you heard his little story about how this scientific research team invited him in and they like hooked all these things up to him while he was meditating?
No, I didn't hear it.
Oh, it's so funny. Because they were measuring his brain waves, which is super interesting. And so he was in meditation and he wasn't sure how long he was there, but all of a sudden he became aware of people like hitting his knee with like one of those hammers, you know, to check that. And they're hitting it. And he's like, okay, cool. Maybe they're just, testing my body. I'll stay, in meditation. And then they're hitting the other one. And he's like, okay, cool. I'll just let them go. Like they're obviously just testing how my body's reacting. And the next thing they start shaking him. And he opens his eyes and he's like, what? And they're like, your brainwaves are showing us that you were dead.
What?
So,
What?
Yeah, I know. Wow. You can YouTube it if you're interested in looking. If anyone's watching and they want to, YouTube Sadhguru meditation brainwaves dead or something like that, and you'll be able to find it. He's so funny telling it as well because he's such a cheeky character. It's fascinating. So I think that Shaolin monks have been onto this for centuries. Yogis have been playing around with using different physical postures, like different asanas, different pranayama for centuries to shift different states so they can access higher planes of consciousness and more wisdom. Like it's not new, but what is new is that we're now able to back it up with science, which is why we're going into a research component of what we're doing. So my knowledge is my knowledge is from the psycho-spiritual space because that's what I've practiced my whole life is I've practiced meditation. I've practiced different endurance sports. I've practiced things where I can get myself into those states, but I've never, ever even thought about bringing that into science until Dr. Joe and Dr. Lipton appeared in my realm. I'm like, interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we're talking about Joe Dispenza. We're talking about brainwave states, connecting back to flow, right? Being in flow. Tell us how you combine this with like creating a conscious business? How does it all come together?
It's just makes so much sense. Like, I believe it's the new era of business. And
Yes.
I gave a talk about this the other night. And, like when we're in a flow state, we're in this visceral knowing that you are me and I am you. So
Mm,
we can run our business from this place of connectivity and oneness. The intention behind our actions and the frequency behind what we do is going to be that of which will create unity, acceptance, peace, and love, rather than lack, scarcity, dominance, power. Power is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not coming from a place of lower dense frequencies where we're scamping and scrabbing, and like it's that icky kind of businesses that are only running on profit, and they don't
yeah.
care if their workers are dying on the floor where they're building their iPhones. Like, it's shifting out of that way of doing business and bringing it in, so business becomes a vehicle for conscious
Mm.
change that can actually change the world. That is why flow state is so important in business, and why I believe it's the new era of business. We have to go this way.
So what I'm hearing is when a business which is composed of people, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
systems and people. You can't have like just systems that constantly run because like businesses don't spontaneously generate. We don't have AI that's creating businesses yet, as far as I'm aware. But like there's people running it. And so if there's people running it and those people are running in beta brain waves, then they're running out of reaction. They're running out of fight, flight, or freeze. They're not operating in oneness, unity, and love. And
Mm-hmm.
so to be a conscious business, like not only the leadership, but also the people in the organization get to operate from that alpha and theta brainwaves, or at least be familiar with it, be resonating with it at some level, to be able to make the impact and make this world a better place, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what you're hearing.
Hmm.
And I mean, then it leads on to, we get to choose where we put our profit.
Mm.
You know, we start to look at ways of making contribution. And, because not that there's anything wrong with being super rich, because my goal is absolutely to be a billionaire and not to have the
Yes.
money, because I absolutely, why would we not want to be? I'm here to play the
Right.
game and to
Yes.
play the game, not the game to play me. There's a difference. So I work
Mm.
with entrepreneurs that want to
Wow.
play the game but not be consumed by it, because it's just a
Wow.
game. It's when
Yes.
we flip into that where it becomes all consuming and we start to get reactive and we start to get back into the reptilian brain. That's where we're in trouble. I want to play it from this almost like I'm the puppet master. Good song by Metallica, by the way. I'm a bit disappointed they cancelled their tour. But anyway, so it's sorry, this is how my brain works. It's like a million miles an
I
hour.
love it.
Um, so we can start to actually contribute to the world. So I want to be
Yeah.
a billionaire because I want to start buying up pockets of the Amazon and giving it back to the indigenous tribes and
Boom.
gifting it to them. Yeah,
Mm.
this is your land. This is not ours. We have no right.
Mm.
Your government has no right to sell it to these people so they can come in and put agriculture on there. This is your land. I want to give this back to you. Like, imagine, like, I know Douglas Tompkins, who owned North Face, and he's one of my idols. He's passed on now, but that was he did a lot of like land conservation by buying up pockets of land and doing that in the world.
Yeah.
But we need more billionaires doing that.
Yep.
We need more millionaires doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if these billionaires and millionaires are accessing flow state and are able to really tap into the oneness of all things, we can start to actually help each other. We can start to help those who don't have access to that. And it becomes a vehicle for change, not a vehicle to just get grubby, greedy profits.
Mm. So it's like really, I love how you said it's what's the game, and is the game playing us, or are we playing the game? Are we, choosing to create our own narrative, choosing to create with love, to serve people, to live in a world that's out to help us, that a world
Yeah.
that's out to, empower us and help us succeed and achieve our greatest
Yeah.
visions? Or is it us against the world, and
Yeah,
everyone's
exactly.
trying to get what we have? No, like we create the rules. Whatever we believe is true is what we reflect into our reality and manifest.
Exactly.
I love this. I know retreats are also a part of your business model and what you're providing for people. So let's talk about that and how retreats and especially psychedelic experiences have really made an impact on your business model.
Yeah, definitely. retreats are like life on steroids. That's why I like them, because people can't run away as well. Like, well, they can. Obviously, I'm not going to like lock in a room, but it like gives you, like, we just had a mastermind in Bali for a business program that I run. And like, it was incredible, the breakthroughs. There were people who were struggling for the whole 11 weeks leading up. And I just knew if I could just get them at that mastermind, like, because they wouldn't be able to run away from me. Their stories wouldn't be able to come in, because the minute they could come in, I could call them on it and just get them to keep taking action. And the shifts that they made in just 3 days is absolutely extraordinary. So and then additional to that is when we're at retreats or masterminds, there's that energetic container, that almost vortex of frequency that is happening on the land, that the land is supporting. You've got to be really mindful where you run your retreats, ensuring that the land is going to hold you, that there's permission from the ancestors to be there and the local tribes. It's all very important as well. But from that, the vortex that's created for healing and elevation is crazy. It's so powerful. It's the fastest way, I believe, to evolve and accelerate is to go to a retreat.
Wow. So you said getting the permission of the ancestors in the land. How would someone practically do that? Because I'm going to Bali and hosting a retreat. I want to make sure I have divine grace in my favor.
Amazing. Well, in Bali, were you renting a house with staff?
Villa. Yeah, villa.
Villa.
Yep.
Ask this right ahead and ask if you can do a ceremony where they do a giving ceremony where you can give an offering to the ancestors in the land to gain permission. So they'll be absolutely be able to help you with that. It's really quite a common thing that's done in Bali. Yeah. And the Balinese people are the most beautiful people in the world. I love them so much. They're amazing.
That's so freaking beautiful. I love it. I love it. This is so awesome. Okay, so you mentioned about the 11 weeks before, right? Like before the mastermind that you had, and do you combine the retreat experience, the mastermind experience, destination travel with a coaching program? If so, why? How? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I do, and the plant medicine retreats have been standalone with 4 weeks of support afterwards, but the 4 weeks of support is more like us just reminding you of the tools, because when people leave the retreats, the familiar environment they go back into is the environment that will remind them of who they thought they were.
Used to be, yep.
Used to be, so we do that, but this new model that I tried, we did 11 weeks leading up to, and it was a business accountability program. So they chose one thing. We'll call it a lead domino, the one thing that was going to help them create a massive amount of income so they could build out the rest of their business. Wow. And so it was different from person to person. I think two people made 130K in 11 weeks. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. It was absolutely insane. So the reason we do that is because there's work and preparation to do beforehand, just like when you're growing crops or you're building a house. Like, we need to lay a strong foundation. And because when I work with people, I do offer money back guarantees and make outlandish promises, because I find I work better under pressure. So I just create that container for myself. So I want to lay the groundwork. I want to have the foundation, and I want to get to know them, because the more intimately I know them, the more I can see their narratives that they have running, and the more I can start to help them move out of that. So that's why I combine the two. Then the actual mastermind or the retreat is a way I've got all the information, we've laid the foundation, and boom, we just get to like launch.
So I want to get more clarity on the psychedelics. Is that the same thing as the mastermind, as that 3-day retreat, or is there something before that?
So during the 3-day retreat for my business things, we sometimes we use the use of flow states, but it varies from mastermind to mastermind. So sometimes it might be psychedelics if we're in a country where it's legal.
Yep.
But other times it might be breathwork, pranayama, yoga, meditation, fasting. We will shift and move dependent on the country we're in and the group that we have, but we always include flow states with our business work. We even include it through the accountability beforehand. We start to work with, quantum meditations, like getting themselves into like the quantum field, like all of that stuff is weaved through as well, which is cool. And then the psychedelic retreats, Ancient Awakening, that's all psychedelics. That's 8 days of psychedelics and 4 ceremonies.
Wow. Okay, so there's always flow states in the I think it's like 11-week program, and then the 3-day mastermind. Is that like
Yeah.
the structure that you apply? That's like a kind of rinse and repeat kind of structure, and then you also have the 8-day more psychedelics, ancient awakening structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. And I have 12-month memberships as well, which is a 12-month immersion into the game, basically. It's called proximity. Because we're
So
playing the game.
where did proximity come from? Where did that name come from?
Because the entire program is built around leveraging access and proximity to some of the greatest minds in business and marketing and branding. So I'm the bridge between the conscious community that perhaps wouldn't be able to afford to spend, $500,000 or $250,000 on gaining access to these people, but I can be the bridge, so I can get them access through networking. And then we combine that with using flow states, with business strategy, and then we leverage the proximity and the networking and the collaborations over a 12-month period so they can quantum leap just exactly the same way I have. That's how I'm quantum leap, just like that. So we build a new narrative, and we work within the rules of the system, and we work outside of the system.
That's an interesting distinction within the rules of the system and outside of the system. How do you do both?
Well, one of the things I learned from Zen literature and Zen study was that the acceptance of all things is equal to enlightenment. If we're in resistance to the what is, and i.e. the reality in the current system, we're suffering. And if we're in resistance, we're only going to create more pockets of resistance in our reality, because we create what we are, not what we want. Yeah. So we still work within the system because that's our current paradigm. Until it changes, then we will pivot and change with it. But right now, we pay money for things, and we get services, and we eat food, and there's a governmental system, and all these things are the reality of this existence. So we still work with that for now. Exactly. And when it shifts, we shift.
Man, so good. How does someone identify their narrative and begin to create a new one? Because I think, there's times where it would be so easy just to say, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. But I know that there might be some subconscious stuff that gets in the way of doing that. How do we dance with that?
The best way to see your narrative is to look at your reality. Look at your bank account. Look at your relationships. Look at your attitude to every day. That will give you a huge tip onto exactly where your narrative is. It's really cool. I read in the book Stealing Fire, it said, show me your calendar and your bank account, and I'll show you the state of who you are. So where you put your time and your money is a direct reflection of your narrative.
Okay, so to shift that, we get to reprioritize our time and our money, and where we're investing that. It's easy to say, might not be so easy to do.
So true.
So, being around awesome people like yourself is probably a recommendation. Learning from you, I'm sure you're sharing tons of content around evolving, getting into these flow states, becoming our greatest possible selves through your platform and style. Is there anything else you'd recommend around being able to shift that narrative?
Totally. So definitely, like you said, the top 5 people you spend your most time with, you become. So really be mindful of who you're spending your time with. And I love, Grant always says, if people in your life are telling you you're being unreasonable and you should minimize your goals, they're not your friends. Get new friends. So I was like, yes, that is very true. I like it. So the people and the networks you move in is huge. And then your small habits, what you do when nobody is watching, start there, because that's essentially what's creating your reality. How do you start your day? Are you starting with accessing a flow state? Are you writing your goals down? Are you focusing on small actionable steps? Perhaps try applying Pareto's law. That's something I work with clients on all the time, is that, get really clear on the 20% of the things that you do that create the 80% of the results in your life. Yeah. So flow states, Pareto's law, proximity or networking, who's in your network. And start there, and I feel like that's a really good formula to actually start making change. And then knowing that change is uncomfortable. If you feel uncomfortable, excellent, means you're making change. Because if you felt comfortable, you wouldn't be making change. You would just be repeating the same pattern. So embrace the discomfort, rather than running away from it. That was huge for me, massive. When I learned that if I was stressed, what I do when I'm stressed actually, which is a really cool thing, and Grant gave this to me, is I'll write down my goals. If I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I'll get out a notepad and pen and I'll write down my goals, because it just brings me back into focus. Yeah.
Wow. So, how many goals do you write down? Because I think, like, does Grant recommend like 10, your top 10 goals, or what is the amount of goals and what time frame? I'm sure it varies from person to person, but what would you recommend?
So I write one main goal, and then I go, what do I need to do to make this happen? And then I write down the things, and they become, I guess, micro goals. They're like the little actionable steps that need to get done in order to do that one big thing.
Wow. Yeah, because it's like going back to the one lead domino, going back to the Pareto Principle. It's like if we're trying to focus on 10 different things, like I said, that's not going to get us where we want to go as fast as possible. It's not going to penetrate the resistance, the BS, the momentum that has kept us where we are, spinning our wheels or whatever it might be. And so we like really got to put all of our intention, of focus, conscious effort in a certain direction.
Yeah, agreed. And being really disciplined with only doing, like, so for example, with what I find with people is they go, yes, this is my lead domino, I'm going to create this program, and then a week later they'll be like, oh, but what about this one and this one? And I'm like, no, not that other stuff, just the one thing.
Yes.
Because the mind will want to become distracted, because it's just a way of sabotaging. So being disciplined and just sticky, do that one thing in excellence. When it is done, then you can go into whatever else it is. Then you can build out the rest of your customer journey and your business structure, because you'll have 100K in the bank. You won't be stressed about money. The ego will be nullified in a sense, because you've got given it evidence that it's safe for you to step outside of your comfort zone. You will be moving in different circles because you've shifted from lack to abundance. And then the reality starts to change. So just that one thing, that one lead domino, please.
You're kind of passionate about this, Kate.
Yeah, really passionate. So passionate. Only because I know, like, I was.
You're super. You're embodying it. You're like, hey, I did this, and especially like the 10x stuff. Like, to see your company grow, I think it was like 800% in 1 year. That is like super confirmation of when I just freaking focus, life transforms.
Totally, absolutely. Like, and Pareto's law is the key to this, right? Like, starting your day with the 20% of the things that create 80% of your revenue. No revenue, no business. Doesn't matter how great you've mapped out your 10-week program. If you don't have clients, you don't have a business. So being able to actually see this and to start to action it is like paramount.
Yeah, this is gold. I love it, Kate. Super, super powerful. So I want to circle back around to retreats and these like destination experiences. From what you've learned, from what you've put on, what have you found really makes a successful container for a retreat?
Yeah, definitely is screening, firstly, making sure people that you invite into your space are qualified to be there. Yeah. Not qualified as in like qualifications like degrees. I just mean ready to be there.
Yeah.
Like, and making sure they're of the right mental set. For us, we have contraindications with psychedelics, so we have to be really careful that nobody has any sort of illnesses, or whether it be physical or mental or emotional. So make sure the people in your container are the right energetic like match to be there. That's huge. Like, that would be nearly 50% of it, to be honest. Yeah. Then after that, making sure that you have space for people to be seen and heard, to not get deviated into story. So you want to have some sort of system set up. So we have what we call office hours. So every second day, there's a 2-hour period where I will sit in my office, which is just my room, and people can come in for 5 minutes and they can just get recalibrated. Because when you have a big group of people, like 20 people coming through, and you've got a system and an order of like things that you've got to stick to, schedule, it's very difficult to get everybody's individual needs met. However, having their individual needs met is a very important way to build community and team. And without actually having one-on-one time, it's very difficult to do that. So making sure you have something set in your retreat, if they're group retreats, where you get one-on-one time with people just to recalibrate them. Yes, super
Wow.
important.
I'm curious if there's like more than one teacher or host, like me and my girlfriend were doing this Bali retreat. Would you recommend that we both have like, hey, Chris is gonna do office hours, come see Chris for 5 minutes? That would probably be best, right? We can both
Yes,
have our own office hours. That way if
agreed.
someone, resonates with one of us, trusts us more, whatever, then they're able to feel safe in that space.
Yes, yeah, definitely a great idea. Like when we do Shishen, which is the Buddhist, like the Zen retreats, there's different monks that will have different office hour times. And so you just kind of go to the monk that you feel most resonant with, or in my case, the one that scares me the most. I always go to that one.
I like
Yeah.
it. I like it.
Super important. And then the next thing is allow time and space for people to integrate. So don't feel this need that you have to just like pack the schedule full of everything. Like we have periods of silent reflection, because silent reflection is not something that people get in their normal life. No phones, no talking, no eye contact, no distractions, no even reading. Just be with yourself. Allow periods of time where people can just be with themselves, because that's what we don't get out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in those integration periods, you recommend like don't even talk to each other. Some of these spaces, like how can you just be with what just happened, what you just experienced, the lesson, the excursion, the whatever, and just be with yourself for let's say 30 minutes, 60 minutes, something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And you'll be
Wow.
surprised how many people find that more difficult than the ceremonies at my
Yep.
retreats.
Yep.
They do one of the deciding factors people don't want to come is because
Wow.
of the silent contemplation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
powerful. This is great, Kate. I love it. I want to talk about the 800% that
Yeah.
of increase. That's massive. I think people dream of those kinds of things in their business and in their life. Tactically, what would you say really worked for you to be able to create that kind of growth?
Yeah. So firstly, I didn't realize what I did until I'd done it. I just want to like preface it with that.
Yeah.
I actually didn't even realize I'd made that until one of my staff said to me, "Hey, have you actually seen what you've done over the last 12 months?" I'm like, "Oh,
Wow.
no." And then I
Wow.
looked, I was like, "Oh boy." So definitely what worked for me is intimacy. Intimacy over funnels. Because when I started with zero revenue, and I had a pretty decent network of people, but there was a book called 1,000 True Fans. For me, that I believe that if I had 1,000 true fans, I had 1,000 true people that wanted help, and I built intimate connections with them through bringing them into, say, Facebook groups, and then building the relations in and outside of that by providing massive amounts of value and service, then I would win. And I did. So intimate connections for me is the foundation for what I've done. So, and it's not scalable, but I read something the other day. Scott Oldford said, "Do the unscalable so you can scale." And for me, that's what it was. That it's cool, huh? Do the unscalable so you can scale. So for me, I would run Facebook challenges. It'll be 5 days of ancient awakening or something like that. And so then people in that challenge, every single person, if there was 200 people, would get a free 15-minute phone call with me, and I'd connect with them, and then I'd follow up with them. And then, of course, I would invite them to come to my retreats, but my intention was always, what can I give first? How can I be of service first? How can I see this person? And then offer them a solution. If they were a match, I would never offer a solution to someone that wasn't a match, because that was out of integrity for me. That's essentially, I rinsed and repeated that for 12 months. That was all I did. I worked every day for 12 months.
So you mentioned one thing that's helped you is when you got stressed out, you wrote your goal, right? And what was top priority for you. What were you focusing on in those 12 months so that you wouldn't be like focused on the money, right? Because like obviously the conversation of I want to make $1 million or whatever it is, like that wasn't going. Was that going through your head, or was something else going through your head?
No, it wasn't going through my head at all. It was, I just wanted my retreats filled. Just wanted them filled. That was it. I just wanted every retreat to be maxed out. That was it. That was my intention. And from there, other programs birthed as well. But they were just a byproduct of the fact that I was Pareto lawing, filling those retreats. So there will always be byproducts, but you've got to make sure you focus on that number one domino. And even now, like someone asked me a question at the mastermind, they said, do you get excited when you sell big packages, like as in high ticket items? Because some of my memberships are high ticket. I said, no, I don't. That's really interesting. I don't. But I do get excited when I can give Grant Cardone $100,000 to be my coach.
Dang.
Or pay Gary Vee $25K to go and spend the weekend with him. That excites me. That's when I have a celebration and I realize how far I've come, but not when I'm receiving money for stuff. It's a very interesting dynamic.
It's what the money gives you access to. It's the experiences. Like that's, yeah, I think a lot of people focus on, you know, to create a 6-figure business, 7-figure business, they're focusing on the money, right? But what is really important to us? It's probably serving people. It's probably like really making a difference, adding value, having genuine connections, and, you know, being able to access things, people, experiences that we never could before, provide for our family, you know, do different stuff like that. I think that that's like really the important thing. If we put our energy and our, you know, quantum visualization of who we're becoming and what we're experiencing into that direction, then I think that that will like pull us a lot faster.
Oh, totally, because it's the why. Like the money is like just a thing, but it's what we get. Like it's the thing outside of that. You know, it's so cool. Tony Robbins speaks about it, doesn't he? It's like, it's not the money you want, it's the freedom. You know, you want that freedom. I remember doing those. I don't know if you did them. You remember the little audio tapes that you could get off the infomercials back in the day? Unleash the Giant Within and all those ones.
I wasn't into personal development back then.
And you're also probably younger than me, but I used to do like the audio cassettes. It was so cool. You'd like put them in and you'd like jot down all your notes from Tony. Yeah, it was so good.
I love it. I love it. Kate, this has been such a freaking blast. I want to drive it home with final takeaways for our audience. What do you want them to do? How they can awaken themselves? Let's just drive it home. This is great.
Yes, yeah. Please, 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 anyone listening, know that you are limitless. I am complete living embodiment of that. If you look at my life, I'm the embodiment that anything's possible. If I can do it, you can do it. You just have to find a way. Start with accessing flow states. Start with finding a way that resonates with you. Figure out what your number one thing is, and then figure out the 20% of the actions that will create the 80% of the results for that one thing. And then surround yourself with people who lift you up and motivate you and pull you forward and hold you in a standard of excellence. And then that's your recipe. That's it right there. That's all you need to do.
That's the juice. That's the juice right there. Kate, how do people take the next steps with you? What do they do next?
Yes. Well, because I love intimacy, message me on Facebook. I'd love to actually just chat to you. And then if I have something that I feel like is suitable, whether it's we've got a retreat in Mexico or whether it's doing my proximity program, then we can chat about that. But it'd be just nice just to connect. Like, just message me. I just want to talk to people.
I love it. I love it. I just tagged you in Facebook on the live stream. And for those who are listening to the podcast, YouTube, watching the replay, whatever it might be, freaking messages, powerhouse, this superwoman. You are awakening people in such a great way, Kate. Thank you for reminding us that we're limitless and being here to activate so many souls. And this is just the freaking beginning for you. I'm so stoked to see the next, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years and what you create. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. Like, you are a powerhouse. Like, I'm vibing all day now because of your energy. So thank you, brother.
Yes, I love it. Awesome, Kate. We'll see you soon, okay?
You. Bye.